without going into all the details, the pomp and circumstance of these events, Tony, because we get the camera calls, right?
Yeah.
We see the photo ops. What is actually going to happen behind the scenes? And is there a real opportunity for Trump and Xi to make some kind of a deal?
I don't think there's an opportunity to make a deal. I think the best anyone can hope coming out of that bilateral meeting is an agreement to get their people together to sit down and talk. If they haven't really spoken, haven't really had the face-to-face dialogue that you would expect that they would have at this point. I know that the Chinese were really waiting for the midterms and for this meeting before they do that. So I think that would be a positive outcome. I think the market would be pretty excited if they agreed to sit down and try to work through these things. But I think a deal is not in the offing. Some of these things they're just too hard to get to at a meeting like this.
I thought you'd come here with some good news this morning, Tony.
That's good news. People will like it. People will like the idea of them sitting down and trying to work through it. But you have to remember, on some of these things, some of the things that the White House is calling on the Chinese to do, the Chinese are starting from a position of saying we don't actually even do these things. So it's really hard to come to a middle ground on them, and they're big, complicated issues. I think. Although I do think talking will be good, that doesn't mean that additional tariffs are not coming. I actually lean towards the likelihood of tariffs coming. The president says repeatedly he likes tariffs. He's a tariff guy. And if these existing tariffs brought the Chinese to the table, I think he's going to want to use the rest of the tariffs as well. I
mean, when you look at the framework of a meeting like this, I guess it's like teenagers in their parents' basement, right? I mean, how much private time are they going to be able to get before dad opens the door? And what's going on down there? Are they going to be able to get any time alone where they can hammer something out where the cameras are not on them, where they don't have to kind of show off or front for the camera?
Hardly. No, not really. It's like being in a fishbowl. These meetings. So the meetings themselves will be behind closed doors. You'll get the photo ops. Then, both before the meetings and even during the meetings, there will be bilateral opportunities for President Trump and Xi, and some of the other world leaders that are there as well. They will get a chance. I mean, they haven't announced their bilateral schedule, so they haven't. I mean, they've said that they're going to be meeting with President Xi. I haven't seen the list of the other leaders that they'll meet with, but there are also some other high-profile meetings that could be there as well.
There are a number of high-profile people who have equated this trade spat with the Cold War, and I've written on Twitter and I've said to people that's ridiculous. Cold War, Russia, we didn't have any economic ties. We didn't send them much in the way of food, and we didn't send them much in the way of energy. China imports a lot of food from us. They import a lot of energy. We just did that story last week from Corpus Christi, Texas. And we have a big economic relationship. How real do you think this fight actually is? Or are we so connected actually behind the scenes, Tony, that we're going to be okay?
It's funny. We're 100 years from World War I. I remember that some people made a lot of the same arguments about World War I, that the global economy was too integrated. It was so integrated that we could not have a war. If we had a war, it would be a very short war. People have said a lot of the same things about the U.S.-China relationship. I think you're right. We are much more fully integrated. It's clear we're seeing that there's pain on both sides. We're seeing it across a whole array of industries. Even last night or yesterday with GM's announcement, that wasn't the only reason that GM is closing plants, but it's certainly a factor. The trade dispute isn't helping their bottom line. So we are seeing pain all the way around, including pain in China. But you have to remember still that these are countries that have staked out positions, and the leaders have their own views on these issues, and they have pride also. So the logic of integration isn't always the way these things work out, and they could go on for a very long time. And I think in this case, it will go on for a much longer time.